My name is Doris, and the night my billionaire grandfather was cast into the heart of a raging storm will replay in my mind until the day I join him. It wasn't lightning or fate or accident that did it. It was family. Hours before thunder split the sky, he had placed a sealed envelope on our table and handed my father $50 million with a single devastating request. Take care of me. Those 4 words turned our home into a battlefield of greed, guilt, and consequence. What followed would rip apart 3 generations of our bloodline and uncover a hidden fortune none of us could have imagined. If you've ever believed that karma keeps perfect score, you'll feel every word I'm about to tell you, because this is a story of betrayal drenched in thunder, and revenge that doesn't whisper. It roars. I will never forget that evening, the one where everything in our house changed temperature. The lights felt too bright, the air too heavy. My grandfather, Thomas Carter, sat in his old leather chair, the same one he'd had since before I was born, his cane resting upright beside him like a loyal companion. At 82, he still carried the weight of authority in every slow, deliberate motion. When he raised his hand, silence filled the room. "James," he said to my father, each syllable pronounced like a verdict. Then to my mother, "Marcia, I'm entrusting you both with something very important." The air thickened, almost audible in its stillness. He withdrew a heavy envelope sealed with deep red wax and placed it gently on the mahogany table. His fingers trembled slightly. $50 million, he said quietly. Use it to care for me. The sentence hung in the air like smoke. My mother gasped, her hand flying theatrically to her chest. My father blinked twice, swallowing like the words were too rich to digest. Then came his smile, that awful, calculating grin that never touched his eyes. "Dad," James said with forced laughter. "You shouldn't have, but of course you'll be safe with us." "Oh, Thomas," my mother cooed, her tone syrupy enough to rot teeth. "You've made the perfect decision. You'll never need to worry about a thing." But I saw it. The gleam behind her performance wasn't love. It was hunger. The same glitter she got during poker nights when she smelled weakness across the table. Grandpa didn't react. His expression softened into something unreadable. Half resignation, half sorrow. Looking back, I think he already knew this wasn't a gift. It was a test. When he slid that envelope forward, the sound of paper on wood echoed like a gunshot. My father snatched it up, eyes gleaming, clutching it as though it contained the meaning of life. I stood quietly in the corner, invisible as usual, watching greed rearrange their faces into strangers. "Don't worry, Doris," my father said as if on cue, his voice booming over the unease. "Your grandpa will live like royalty here. We're family after all." But when he said family, he meant ownership, and when he said care, he meant control. Grandpa looked at me then, really looked. His gaze met mine, and there was apology in it, like he wanted to say, "I'm sorry I'm leaving this in their hands." I wanted to warn him not to trust them, to shout, to grab the envelope and run. But the words withered in my throat. I smiled instead, a weak, brittle thing, praying my eyes said what my mouth could not. That night, champagne cracked open like fireworks. My parents laughed too loudly, their victory echoing through the house while rain began to patter against the windows. Upstairs, I lay awake staring into the dark, feeling every tick of the clock like a countdown to something awful. That money wasn't a blessing. It was a poison, and we'd just taken the first sip. For the first few weeks, they played their parts flawlessly. Marcia, suddenly rebranded as the perfect caregiver, set out polished china at breakfast and brewed Thomas's favorite black coffee. Father strutted through the halls calling him King of the Castle. Their kindness was so exaggerated it almost looked like punishment. They served him lavish meals, carried his bags, boasted about their devotion, and beamed like saints. But the performances always end. I watched as the effort slipped day by day. The tone of their voices turned brittle. The smiles stiffened. When they thought I wasn't listening, they argued, in whispers sharp enough to cut glass. One night, passing the kitchen, I heard it clear as thunder. "He's eating us out of house and home," my father hissed. "Do you know what organic groceries cost? At this rate, he'll drain $50 million before I can even invest it." My mother's voice was a cold hiss. "Keep it down. We'll scale things back, slowly." He'll never notice. Scale back? On an old man's life? From then on, breakfast became toast from yesterday. Coffee? Instant. Conversations? Short. The help disappeared. The nurse quit. The mansion that once hummed with quiet dignity shrank into silence. One afternoon, the rain tapped softly on the window while we watched an old Western movie together. The glow from the TV washed Grandpa's wrinkled face in silver light. His thin voice startled me. "Doris," he murmured, "do you think money ruins people?" I hesitated. "Sometimes. But not everyone." He nodded, staring at nothing. "I thought giving your father that money would bring us closer." His jaw tightened. "Instead, I've chained myself to my own destruction." Before I could find words, my mother swept in with her rehearsed smile. "Tea time," she chirped, her eyes gliding past him like he was just another piece of furniture. That's when I knew. She didn't even see him anymore. The night the storm came, even the house seemed afraid. The wind howled like it was warning us. Lightning flashed, painting everything white for a heartbeat at a time. I sat on the couch pretending to study, headphones around my neck but no music playing, listening as tension cracked through the walls like electric current. Then, it happened. A crash in the kitchen, a plate shattering, a gasp, and my father's roar. "I've had enough," he shouted. "Enough of this old man bleeding us dry." I ran to the doorway, heart pounding. My father stood among shards of broken ceramic, chest heaving, eyes wild. My mother stood beside him, arms crossed, composed like a queen watching a peasant tantrum. "James," she said, her voice a slow blade. "Calm down. We knew this day would come. Maybe it's time to let him go." Grandpa appeared in the hallway then, his cane trembling in his hand, his face lined with confusion and heartbreak. The storm's roar outside seemed to swallow our breaths. "Is this how it ends?" His voice cracked but didn't waver. "After everything I gave you?" My father's face twisted, rage and guilt twisting into something monstrous. "You think 50 million buys you the right to control us? You're nothing but dead weight, old man. A burden." The room went silent except for the rain. Even thunder seemed to wait. "Dad, stop!" I shouted, stepping forward, my voice small but shaking with fury. "Stay out of this, Doris," he barked. "You don't understand sacrifice. You don't know what this has cost us." "He's your father," I pleaded. "Not anymore." My father stormed to the front door and yanked it open. The world outside exploded in fury, rain spearing in, curtains flapping, wind howling like something alive. He pointed into the blackness, jaw clenched. "Get out. You want care? Find it somewhere else. You're not my problem anymore." Time split in two. I saw Thomas, my grandfather, my compass, stand small and shaking in the doorway, his shoulders slumped with the weight of love misplaced. My mother said nothing, simply watched, her eyes shining with cold calculation. Then he turned, his cane tapping once against the wet floor, and stepped out into the storm. Out into exile. "Grandpa!" I screamed, running after him. He stood on our porch, rain instantly soaking through his thin cardigan, gray hair plastered to his skull. He looked so small, like the storm might swallow him whole. "Shut the door, Doris," James growled behind me. "This is finished." I spun around, fury igniting in my chest. "No, you threw him out, but I won't abandon him." I ran into the rain, wrapping my arms around Thomas's frail body. He was shivering, his voice breaking. I never imagined it would end like this. Tears burned my eyes as I whispered fiercely, "You'll never be alone. Grandpa, not while I breathe." The door slammed shut behind us with finality. I pulled him close and guided him toward my beaten Honda, my heart pounding, but my resolve crystal clear. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. 3 months later, Thomas passed away peacefully in my tiny studio apartment. We'd shared instant noodles and stories, turning poverty into richness through love alone. His final words were, "You gave me dignity when they gave me dollars. That means everything." The will reading took place on a gray morning that matched my grief. I wore my only black dress, still smelling of the diner where I worked double shifts. The law office was all polished wood and leather, too fancy for our broken family. James paced impatiently while Marcus scrolled her phone. My cousins Kevin, Joan, Edward, and Jenny whispered in the corner about inheritance splits. I sat alone, small but burning with quiet defiance. George Morrison, the silver-haired lawyer, entered with ceremony. "We're here to honor Thomas Carter's final wishes." He opened his folder with practiced precision. Thomas provided his son with $50 million, expecting care in return. James smirked, straightening his tie smugly. "Yes, we took excellent care of him," he lead boldly. My fist clenched under Thedible. "Liar." Morrison continued without expression. However, Thomas's total estate was far larger than most knew. He paused, scanning our faces. At his death, his assets totaled approximately $400 million. Silence crashed over the room like a tidal wave. "What?" James's voice cracked. "100 million? That's impossible." Marcia's phone clattered to the table. My cousin's jaws dropped in perfect unison. "Investments, real estate, precious metals," Morrison explained calmly. "Thomas was quite strategic, and according to his will, he leaves his entire remaining estate to the world held its breath." Doris Marie Quinn. James exploded from his chair. "This is fraud. I'm his son. I deserve everything." "You were the one who threw him into a storm," I said, finding my voice. "You called him a burden and slammed the door. You manipulated him," Marcia shrieked. "You're nobody. A college dropout with delusions." Morrison slid a USB drive across the table. Thomas anticipated this reaction. He left a video statement. The wall screen flickered to life. There sat Thomas in my cramped apartment, the cheap lamp casting warm light on his lined face. Despite his frailty, his eyes held that familiar sharpness. "If you're watching this," he began, "I'm gone. And I'm sure there's anger in that room, but listen carefully." James started to interrupt, but Morrison held up a silencing hand. "James, Marcia, you had 50 million and one simple request. Treat me with dignity. You failed spectacularly. You made me feel like garbage to be discarded." My mother gasped. My father's fist slammed Thedible, but the video continued. "My granddaughter Doris gave me something you never could, respect. She shared Hurtney apartment and instant noodles, making me feel like a king. She listened to my stories and treated me like a human being, not a bank account." The camera seemed to focus more intently. "That's why everything goes to her. Not just money, but responsibility. Doris, use this to build something meaningful. Help others like you helped me." The screen went black. Stunned silence filled the room like concrete. Finally, James found his voice. "I'll fight this. I'll take it to court." "The will is airtight," Morrison said firmly. "Notarized, witnessed, legally binding. You have no grounds." James looked at me with pure hatred. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid. I wiped my tears, met his burning gaze, and whispered, "You had his money, Dad, but I had his love. And that's something you'll never understand." Years have passed since that gray morning changed everything. I'm writing this from my office at Techeri Solutions, the healthcare software company I built with Thomas's gift. Our programs now serve over 300 hospitals nationwide, improving patient care and saving lives daily. But the legacy I'm most proud of is the Thomas Carter Foundation. We've built 23 assisted living facilities across the country. Not warehouses for the elderly, but true homes where seniors receive dignity, respect, and love. Every resident gets fresh coffee in their favorite mug each morning. Every story gets heard. Every life gets celebrated. My parents never contacted me again after the will reading, but I found peace with that. Thomas taught me that some people are poisoned by money while others are freed by it to create good. The boy who once tugged my sleeve outside our first facility asking if his lonely grandmother could find a home. They're now volunteers every weekend. That cycle of kindness, that's Thomas's true legacy. Sometimes at sunset, standing in our garden where elderly residents play chess under oak trees, I hear his voice in the rustling leaves. Every empire starts small. Don't let money blind you. Use it to create meaning. I whisper back. We did it, Grandpa. We built something beautiful from the ashes of their betrayal. Thomas Carter didn't just leave me wealth. He left me purpose. The courage to choose love over greed and the strength to transform betrayal into something meaningful that touches thousands of lives. That storm night when they threw him away like trash became the foundation for an empire of compassion. And that's revenge, served at its absolute finest. If this story of karma and justice moved you, hit that like button to honor every grandparent who deserves better. Subscribe for more tales of ultimate revenge where the good guys actually win. Remember, sometimes the people with the least money have the most love to give. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next.